trip down memory lane with me, the daughter of the love and happiness man himself, Teenie as the world knew him. Mabon Hodges was his name, but I knew him as Daddy. Daddy grew up on the outskirts of Memphis, Tennessee. My mom was a native of Louisiana, and I am their biracial child, born in the 1960s with a story to tell. From abandonment to being denied paternity, to being sought after for adoption by musical colleagues of my dad's and my Kojic pastor, to growing up with the love child of Rufus Thomas, to Daddy's house party, to Al Green's house, to Bobby Womack's house, to molestation, to looking for love in all the wrong faces, including living with the ex-brother-in-law of Marjorie Harvey, Steve Harvey's wife, to multiple marriages, to finding Christ, and later leading my dad and mom to an understanding of salvation, forgiveness, and repentance. It's story time.
Thank you for taking this trip with me down memory lane. I'm Tabitha, the daughter of the love and happiness man himself, Mabon Teenie Hodges, co-writer and lead guitar player of said song. It's story time. I'd like to start this episode actually with a couple of corrections from previous episodes. In the last episode, episode 6, I told you about going to Los Angeles, California with Daddy when I was 10 years old, and it was my first plane ride. Well, I received a call from one of my dad's and mom's long time friend. He reminded me that he was the one who put me on my first plane ride around the age of 8 from Nashville to Memphis with my uncle, who was 4 years older than me, and his baby girl that was given my middle name, who was 6 years younger after visiting, she was 6 years younger than me. It was after having visited him. Like I said, he lived in Nashville and we lived in Memphis, and he put us on the plane, my first plane ride back home to Memphis, Tennessee. Little did I know back then, he was also the one who picked up my mom from the hospital after I was delivered. He took us home with his mom. Here he is. Steve Holt is his name. Many of you are likely to know him. He was also Ronnie Millsap's drummer at the time, the country singer, pictured here with Ronnie Millsap. A second correction that I'd like to make is from episode number 2, when I said that Daddy and Roland Robinson were first cousins and best friends. They were actually second cousins, but they were best friends. Daddy and Roland's mom, Lenny, were actually first cousins. Now, we can carry on to today's episode. Daddy took his kids places no other kids would be. When we were kids, Daddy took us everywhere he went, from his daily tennis matches to swimming to his family and friends' houses, and most definitely to the studio. Other than at our family's houses, we were most likely to be the only children in sight, and especially at the studio. I do recall once we went to a party of some sort at Al Green's house. And the only other child that I actually remember there, it could have been more, but the one that I actually remembered there was his son at the time. But that's when we went to Al Green's house, and where all of his rooms are described in my book of memoirs or whatever, and everything is carried, a little bit more detail there. But we would definitely go to the studio with Daddy, and we would be there for what seemed like days. Sometimes we would sit quietly in the recording booth. At times we would be in the control room with the musicians and the producer/engineer, who was Willie Mitchell. We would be listening to retakes, or we would even be watching reels being sliced. Most times we were running around on the ground floor of the studio, however, in an empty area that was like really huge. It was huge enough for us to not only run around, but turn flips and just carry on like we wanted to. It was big enough, it was more than big enough for us to grab a spot and go to sleep until that night's recording session had come to a close. And there may be a repeat of it the very next day. How could we know that we were actually witnessing history in the making? We were just having fun. I recall being backstage with Daddy at a cool jazz festival. I had to be all of 9 or 10 years old. Not only was I backstage, I was on the side of the stage sitting on top of those huge PV speakers, I think were the name, as Shaka Khan stole the show with her Indian outfit on and everything. I can recall it as if it was yesterday. The Isley brothers and I believe Johnny Taylor as well. I don't remember if my siblings were there too. I think they were, but I don't remember. But I know we were always Daddy's plus ones, even down to his last gig. One of my sisters was with him then. I also attended Jack the Rapper music conventions with Daddy in various cities back then. I actually witnessed Ashford and Simpson where music was in motion. Once my mom got front row seats to the Jackson 5 show for me. It was one of the best concerts I ever attended. I was well exposed to say the least, and I've never been starstruck except when I saw the wrestler Jerry Lawler. He was at the fair when I was around 10, 11 years old. He was a local superstar that I had watched since I was a kid growing up on television. So, there, you have it. Today's episode was short and quick, but Daddy took his kids places no other kids would be. We were his pride and joy, simply put. We really were his pride and joy. And we were always his plus ones, his plus twos, his plus threes, his plus fours, and plus more. Now, there you have it. Until the next teeny time story time, in Daddy's own words, what a world, what a world. Toodles.